Grade 4, the highest classification of a meniscus lesion. Add grinding, snapping, and joint swelling to the mix. And for many people, that's a straight line to surgery. But not for me, because 6 weeks later, I was already back on the volleyball court, and that wasn't luck. It came down to one detail you won't see on an MRI and a training strategy most people understand far too late. And if you've been diagnosed with a meniscus injury, you need to know both. When people read grade 4, they immediately think maximum damage, surgery, maybe even arthritis, but that's often the first wrong assumption, because it's not the grade that determines whether you need surgery or not, it's what your knee can handle mechanically, and we have solid evidence for that. Multiple large studies show that in patients with a particular type of meniscus lesion, structured exercise produced long-term outcomes comparable to that of surgery. And one study even tested this in a particularly unusual way. In this study, patients were randomly assigned to either a meniscus surgery group or a group with a convincing sham surgery procedure. In the sham group, the knee was also arthroscoped, instruments were used, sounds were played back, even the duration of the surgery was identical. Now, the only difference was that in the meniscus surgery group, tissue was actually worked on, but in the other group, in the sham group, it wasn't touched at all. And the outcome, on average, no measurable advantage of surgery in terms of pain or function. And what that means for you is that the MRI alone doesn't decide whether you need surgery or not. What matters just as much is whether your knee is mechanically blocked when you try to extend or bend it. And if it is, surgery can absolutely make sense. But either way, another difficult question remains. I was able to return to easy beach volleyball after about 6 weeks of training. My brother had a bucket handle tear in his meniscus, but he's still extremely fit today. And both outcomes are possible because of a meniscus training strategy that prevents setbacks while still allowing you to reach high performance, and most people discover this far too late. After deciding against surgery, my most important question was, okay, which exercise should I do? But how can I prevent the joint from swelling up again? And if you're dealing with a meniscus issue, you probably know what I'm talking about. And this is exactly where most people make the mistake that'll cost them weeks every single time. To move through this first rehab phase quickly, you need to consistently avoid risky movements for at least 4 weeks. And those include deep knee flexion, rotational movements on the affected leg, jumping, explosive changes of direction, and kneeling. All of these place high stress on the meniscus. The challenge is that too much rest also compromises joint function, since the meniscus relies on movement for nutrient supply. So it's pretty much a balancing act. For me, cycling was incredibly helpful in phase 1, and based on the research, I settled on 2 15-minute sessions per day. And for meniscus rehab, it's almost like cheating, because you can do so many thousands of repetitions in a short time without impact and without compressive load. So that was phase 1 of 2. Prevent irritation so swelling can resolve while applying gentle load to the joint to support healing. Phase 2 determines whether your meniscus truly becomes ready for sports again, or whether the swelling returns and you end up back here on square one. And that's where one single exercise made a massive difference for me. Let's look at why this particular exercise works so well and what you must do to protect your meniscus long term. Phase 2 is about strength, but it's also about gaining trust in your knee. And I did that using 2 proven rehab principles that many people skip. Before we talk about the specific exercises, we need to understand something important. A meniscus, it doesn't just tear randomly. This happens either through chronic overload or because of an acute injury. Both cases often occur because the surrounding musculature wasn't strong or coordinated enough to prevent dangerous leg alignment. And if you don't correct that, certain movements will always remain problematic. Because I wanted to avoid re-injury, that meant keeping the meniscus safe in the short term, but also strengthening the whole system that protects the meniscus in the coming years. Which brings us to the next common mistake. People jump back into dynamic exercises way too early. Squats, lunges, leg press. The problem isn't necessarily the exercise, it's the timing. When the tissue is still sensitive, what you need is tension without excessive meniscus stress. And that's why phase 2 begins with isometric exercises. Isometrics create muscular tension without pushing the knee into critical knee angles. In phase 2, I started with isometric squats at moderate knee flexion, wall sits, isometric good mornings, and calf work. And to get there, you need to choose a knee angle that feels right both physically and intuitively. And that's how you build trust and strength without setbacks. After a few weeks, you're ready for the next step. Now we're getting into more dynamic movements so you can eventually return to running and jumping. The key transitional step step here is to go from slow isotonic movements to more dynamic exercises. Standard meniscus rehab exercises include half squats, step-ups, deadlifts, or the leg press. Key principles here are no deep knee flexion under load, no rotational stress, and no rapid directional changes. In general, you still want to avoid movements where it feels like the knee is working hard or it's somehow signaling pressure. And this is where that one exercise changed everything for me. The sliding lunge was my turning point. Why? 4 reasons. First, I could control the depth precisely, and that allowed me to load the meniscus safely while gently pushing greater range of motion, sometimes in each single repetition. Second, even with just body weight, it has a training effect, and scaling up was simple. Third, the exercise trains the exact system that stabilizes and protects your knee in a sport-specific pattern. And fourth, you can do it at home, which saves you a ton of time and makes consistency much easier. In phase 2, you first increase range of motion, then load, and only at the very end do you increase speed. But even perfect training won't be enough if you overlook 3 key factors. And these 3 points determine not just your next couple of weeks, they also determine what your knee will feel like in 10, 20, 30 years from now, regardless of whether you're getting a surgery or not. And if you only take 3 things from this video, let it be these. Point number 1 is that your knee warns you long before it escalates. For me, that was a pressure sensation that I felt in the back of my knee in deep knee flexion. I ignored it. That was my mistake. My brother felt similar signals during a winter vacation, but he told himself, it'll be fine. The result, weeks of swelling. And this is the difference between short-term performance and long-term resilience. If you ignore warning signs, you'll pay the price later. Respect them and you can still get into great shape. For example, my brother is fitter today than he was before his surgery, even though his last MRI showed another tear. Not because his knee is perfect, but because his load management is. Point number 2 will make many fitness influencers angry, and it is not every exercise moves you forward. For many sports, the last 15 degrees of deep loaded knee flexion add no meaningful benefit to sports performance, but significantly increase meniscal pressure. I can squat all the way down again with weight, but the question is, why should I? What's the benefit? A strong meniscus doesn't come from chasing these maximal knee angles. It comes from intelligent exercise selection by balancing sport-specific benefit against knee risk. And point number 3, which many people still underestimate, is your mindset. Studies show that fear and pessimism measurably impact rehab outcomes. If you constantly expect setbacks, you move less and more stiffly. As a result, the joint becomes weaker and ironically, setbacks become more likely. I experienced this, my brother did too, and you'll reach that insight as well. The moment your thinking shifts from, that's it for me with sports, to, I can do it. It's tough, but I can do it. Everything changes and things get easier. Let me tell you, the facts are simple. Your knee will heal biologically and resilience is trainable. All you need for that is intelligent loading and consistency. In my book, The Knee Reboot, I bring this whole approach together with the overlooked causes of knee pain, the rehab mistakes most people make, and a step-by-step plan you can use to build strong knees for life. And if you want to know whether your knee is truly ready to run again, watch the next video. In it, I break down the 5 key criteria you need to check first. That's your next step.